What's going on, guys? My name's Jeremy Drabge. Welcome to episode 1 of In the Trenches. This is a weekly video YouTube series that I am just starting now. This is my first ever YouTube video. Well, first ever in a really long time. The theme of this video series each week will be to take you through, as the name suggests, some practical self-help advice that I get from reading books, listening to audiobooks, YouTube videos, anything that might help me as I am currently right now in the trenches trying to better my life. And I thought I'd share some of those with you, especially some of the more obscure ones that I think actually have some of the biggest impact on whether or not you actually achieve your results or not. So for this very first episode, I want to talk to you about a bit more of an obscure book, but one of the best that I have ever read, a personal Bible of mine, and one that I think that any self-help junkie right now who is reading a lot but not getting the results they want is really going to love. Now, big problem in the self-help movement, books, audios, YouTubes, is at the end of the day, if you don't take action, nothing is going to help you achieve your goals. So, with that being said, this week's book will be focused on the motivation myth right here. This is one of the very few truly unique books out there in the marketplace in the self-improvement niche anyway. So the main premise of this book is motivation, where it comes from, and how we can actually use motivation to truly drive our life in the direction that we want to go. And the reason it's called the motivation myth, because the very start of this book helps to really dispel one of the biggest fundamental myth truths in the entire self-help industry. And that is this idea that motivation comes before action. How many years have you let slip by on a project, goal, or any undertaking you wish to achieve that you haven't taken action on because you were waiting for motivation? You were waiting for the time to be right. You were waiting to feel good enough to actually go out and achieve your goal. The very premise of this book, the fundamental philosophy of this book, is the idea that motivation comes after action. It takes basically the entire self-help industry and flips it around. The order isn't motivation, action. The order is action, motivation. And I think that you'll find this to be true if you actually look at some of the more successful parts of your current life. Look at where you're most successful and see, well, what is actually going on here? Take, for instance, your career. Most of you probably have a reasonably good career, or your fitness, or your health, or your spirituality. Most of you might have one of these few success paths down pat really well. And I would imagine that you don't sit around waiting to be motivated in order to take action on those success paths. For instance, myself, one of my proudest achievements last year was that I ran a 50K ultra marathon. The smallest ultra marathon. It is only just an ultra marathon, but I still did it. And I did it with a very short time period. It's one of the hardest things I have, but it is the hardest thing I have ever done on a single day. And there was around 15, really it was 12 main training weeks I had in order to prepare to do this incredibly long run. Well, long for me at that point. The longest run, I'd raced no races at the time. So this was the longest race I'd ever done, and it was straight to 50K ultra marathon. It required a tremendous amount of weekly hours, total time spent. I don't even know what it was, but in terms of just pure running, some weeks 10, 12, 13, 14 hours of just pure running. On top of that, we have active recovery, we have stretching, we have going to the gym to making sure the rest of our bodies are strong enough to carry us over the line. So it was a big, huge undertaking, and I never had time to sit down and wait to be motivated. I love that this principle shows up in a lot of other books, but it's not said as eloquently. Take, for instance, David Goggins' book. One of the key principles of that book that he speaks about, I'm not sure which chapter it is, but he talks about this idea that he, in a lot of his endeavors, doesn't give himself the opportunity to procrastinate because he jumps straight into it. And again, this is why so many people end up wasting years of their life away, because they are they believe that if they're not motivated to do something, then they shouldn't do it, that the time isn't right, that this, and this, my ducks aren't all in a row, I cannot do this. I'm recording this video on my birthday, kind of appropriately. I procrastinated on starting a YouTube channel now for about 7 years. 7 years, that's a long time to procrastinate. Hold on just a second there, Jeremy from the past. Hello, this is Jeremy from the future. Almost a month and a half from when this video that you're watching was originally recorded. Found out a couple of things since then. Number one, this YouTube thing is a lot harder than I thought it would be, so it's taking a lot more time than I ever thought it would. Secondly, this video that you're watching is basically unwatchable, is not very good, is a bit embarrassing to be honest. But that's okay, everything is a learning experience. We're in the new year now, 2022. I plan to be making much higher quality videos since then. I've learned a tremendous amount about editing, about structuring videos, all that good stuff. I've started recording the second video, which will be covering the same book, just in a far better, more structured format to be hopefully far more helpful and entertaining to watch. So with that being said, I want to wish everyone a happy new year and a lot of videos to come. Yet, some of my other dreams and accomplishments I have absolutely blown out of the park. Why? When I decided to do the 50K ultra marathon, I had X amount of weeks. There was no time to wait to be motivated. I had to go. So that's the key principle. And this should be a driving force in your life forever. Every time I ever move too far away from this principle, I'll go out and I'll read 2-3 self-help books, come back to this book only to realize that I'd moved away from this key fundamental principle. Action before motivation. And motivation does come once you take action. This book so eloquently puts this that it should be a regular read in your library of self-help books. The audiobook is amazing. I have the audiobook. I want to get the paperback version, but I don't currently have it. I will soon. And it is a criminally underrated self-help book. If you haven't got it already, you need to get it. It is extremely motivating in the fact that once you let go of the idea of motivation, action, and start thinking action motivation, all of a sudden getting yourself in the position to do the things you need to do becomes so much easier. It's because of this book that I've overcome the 7 years of procrastination to start this YouTube channel that I'm finally here. And I do read plenty of books about procrastination, including the book Resistance. Is it called Resistance? Including the book The Art of War, which is all about basically beating procrastination. Yet that book, which is focused solely on procrastination, did not do as good a job at getting me to actually do my work as this book does. Okay, so where else do we see this principle? One thing I can tell you about self-help principles is that if they're really truly good, you will see them show up in other mediums, in other books, nothing is unique anymore. So, do we see this show up in other self-help books in some other way, shape, or form? And the answer is that we absolutely do. Earlier on in this video, I mentioned the art of war, or the war of art. It is the war of art, sorry. I mentioned the war of art, and we see this entire principle throughout the entire book, said in a completely different way. Again, there's really nothing truly unique being said in the self-help world today. I can tell you I read enough books to know, but what we will hear is one author's interpretation of a message. And it's those interpretations that really define whether or not we will vibe with that philosophy or not. So, in The Art of War, he talks very much so about the idea of overcoming resistance, that this is this force of nature almost that is out to battle us, and we're going to war with it each and every single day. A lot of people absolutely love that principle, but when we rephrase it in the idea that, well, if we want to get motivated, we simply need to take action, it's almost like we trick our brains into just doing stuff. Why? Well, because we expect positive results, and you know what? We always get them. That's the amazing thing. So, with that being said, if you have not read this book, You must read it. It will become a staple of your self-help diet. And every time I read this book and I refamiliarize myself with this foundational philosophy, I experience a tremendous amount of success. Thank you guys. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. I know it is not the best work I have ever done, I ever will do, but it is what it is. My first ever YouTube video on my birthday. Hopefully a couple of you actually see this video and it's just not me and my mum who watch this video. Okay, editor's note. That was really, 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 really scary. Ooh. There's no way anyone's gonna like these videos. There's no way. I mean, I don't think I am even like this video. Ah, well, too late now.